Oh, you got her, dude. She's down.
Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
All right, we are 100 episodes in and back for episode 101. What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. I am Sam with Fall Obsession, your podcast host, and really appreciate you guys joining me for another Monday morning podcast. Our podcast is driven by Ridge Rock Hunt Company, and I will talk more about them at the end of the episode in the sponsor segment. Last week was a pretty big deal for us. We hit that episode 100 milestone, and in last week's podcast, if you guys haven't had a chance to listen to it, please go back and do so. But I sat down with the majority of our Fall Obsession admin crew to kind of reflect on where we've come from, where we've been, and kind of the evolution of our podcast and some highlights along the way. We were unfortunately missing a member of that admin team last week, the guy that I'm on here with right now to get his side of everything, our media production manager, Nick Powell. Welcome to the triple digits, man.
It's kind of crazy to be here, but we are here and it's awesome.
Yeah, man. I'm like I said last week, I'm super excited. It's awesome to hit that milestone. I don't know, it's some, I feel like, and you might even share the same thoughts, but I feel like it's always been in the back of my mind a little bit, like what's it going to be like to get to that point. Honestly, I mean, it's cool and everything. It doesn't really feel any different because, yeah, we recorded episode 100 last week, but now we're still doing it every week like nothing has changed. Right. So
yeah, it's the same exact thing as when we were recording episode 2 and 3, except now we have better equipment and we know a little bit about what we're doing. So
yeah,
I won't say that we know fully of what we're doing because we definitely don't, but I definitely think we have a better idea. So
we fly by the seat of our pants more times than not, it seems like.
100%.
But people keep listening, so I guess that's a good thing. True. But no, man. So like I said, we were on here last week with the other Nick Latham, our business manager, and Drew, our marketing guy. Kind of getting their take on everything. This crew, this admin group, the four of us have been together as the admin group since before the podcast really started and everything, or I guess kind of when you kind of came in the media production roles, kind of around the time we probably kicked the podcast off, if I remember right.
That's pretty close to that.
Yeah, it was somewhere right in there, but all that is to say, we've all kind of watched it grow and been a part of it in different ways, as we've gone along the way. And other Nick and Drew shared some memories and some of the significant moments, some of their favorite episodes or favorite guests last week on the podcast. Obviously, wanted to just kind of talk some shop with you here today on our podcast, and maybe get some of your highlights, some of your memories that you reflect on over the last 2 years now that we've made it past 100.
For sure, man. I did get a chance to listen to last week, and I was just, because usually I listen in the car probably like everybody else does, and I was just sitting there like in the car listening to those other two guys and yourself go back and forth about all the podcasts we've had, and I'm just rolling through memories of recording these actual podcasts and talking to these awesome guests that we've had, and even just scrolling through the podcasts on our website. It's like, man, we've come a long way and talked to so many cool people. And I remember you saying that this is one of your favorite media types to get content out. And I'd have to agree, because most of the time, I won't say all the time, but most of the time I end up learning something. Yeah. Whether it's just a story somebody's telling, or it's me and you going over bows, or whatever it is, because we've done that a couple times. And so it's been a wild ride, and we'll just keep riding.
For sure, man. Yeah, I mean that's again about all that we can do because it's like, all right, we made it, and then it's like, crap, we still need an episode for next week.
Yeah,
I
you made
still,
it really cool, but now let's get to work.
yeah, I still got to freaking fill this schedule and everything. So,
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
well, man, you talked about going back through and looking at some episodes and bringing back some memories. Let's start with some episodes, not necessarily ranking them, one through whatever. Obviously, if there is one that stands out more than any others, please share. But tell us about
Sure.
some of those highlights and episodes that kind of have stuck with you for a while.
Yeah, man. So I think it might have been Nick Latham who mentioned the bear incident podcast. It's actually two different podcasts.
63 and 64.
Yes, so that's probably my favorite too, just because I love a close call story. I love like they're unfortunate, but I do love a close call story, an intense story, and that one kept me on the edge of my seat. If you guys haven't listened to this, go listen to it because you will not be disappointed.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably my favorite. Even the ones that I've been a part of, I wasn't a part of that one, but out of the ones that I've been a part of, that one's probably my favorite, just because of the content that was inside of it. Some other ones, just scrolling here. It was really cool. I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say before we get too far from that bear, because I share the exact same feelings that you just expressed with that episode. Just a crazy story whatsoever. But again, for our listeners, if you guys haven't listened, because it has been quite a while back. It was June of 21 is when we published those episodes. But 63 and 64, titled Alaskan Brown Bear Part 1 and Part 2. It's Trevor Schneider and Tana Grenda that came on with us. Residents of Alaska. I think Trevor actually lives in Idaho right now. But family that's what they do every year. They hunt in that element, in that environment, and those kind of creatures. And if you haven't followed them on social media, I definitely recommend it. And they have a podcast of their own too, actually, called Stuck in the Rut. Like, they have a podcast and a YouTube channel and all sorts of stuff. They themselves, that whole family. So go check them out. Not to rabbit trail, but before we got off the brown bear, I wanted to do that. So
No, that's great. And I follow both of them on Instagram. They're both on Instagram.
yeah.
And so if y'all are listening, shout out to Trevor and Tana. But yeah, go check them out for sure.
Yep.
One of my favorite episodes. It's going to be very, very difficult to narrow down like some highlights because they're all, like, every single one bring back memories. Like, I was just scrolling right now and found where we recorded with our buddy Chance and Waylon, and our Waylon's obviously a pro staffer with us, but with our buddy Chance and his man cave and being inside that place, that was probably one of the coolest places we've ever recorded.
Yeah.
Still, out of 100 episodes, that's probably one of the coolest places.
We made a couple trips out there, a couple different times.
Yeah.
So
And I was thinking about it. We need to make another one.
yeah, and I tossed it around actually the other day. It's probably been a few weeks ago now with Chance about doing another round out there, and I need to visit with him again. I only see him every third day at shift change, so I can probably I can probably talk him into it. He'd be down. But those two rounds that we did on that, the one with Chance and Waylon were episodes 25 and 26. Kind of talking about the unique environment that they hunt on. Waylon also, he shot a record book buck, low fence, free range whitetail out there in, I forget what year it was. It slipped my mind, but he actually also by himself came on the podcast early on in episode 8 to tell that story. So those are all worth going back and listening to. And then I think the second round that we did out there with Chance, we had our other buddy Brody Aiken out there with us as well, which super fun time hanging out with those. We recorded 3 that day, and they were published consecutively, 43, 44, and 45. One of those 43 being Brody's mule deer hunt from a couple years ago, which is another really cool story up in Wyoming.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if y'all want to get an idea of how mule deer hunting in Wyoming with an outfitter is, go listen to that. And then if you just want a good story, go listen to all three of those, because there's a lot of good stories in all of those. And all of those dudes can, I feel like telling a story is an art a little bit. Like it takes, like not everybody can tell a story. And I'm one of those people. I'm terrible at telling stories, but I am working on it. Our buddy Brody gives me a hard time all the time. But anyways, all three of those guys are really good storytellers, along with our buddy Kelly Cato.
Yes.
And you mentioned his, I think it's his Texas Slam or something like that.
His Bighorn, yeah.
Yeah, and he told that Bighorn story, and
the
Waylon
pronghorn
was in
yeah.
that story as well.
Yeah, man, it's all a network
All
down
those
here in
guys, yes.
Texas. You know, I mean, and honestly, that's what I mean. That again, I know I keep rabbit trailing off of here. That's my thing. If you listen to any of the past 100 episodes, you know that I go on rabbit trails.
Absolutely.
But you know, it's no secret. Like we've had a lot of guests on this show that are firemen. You and I are firemen. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out how that connection works, how we meet these guys and everything. You know, we work with majority of them, and but you know, we're bringing our buddies essentially on this podcast. But then at the same time, I feel like that only just I don't know. It does something. You know, it's not just you know, oh, Sam brought another buddy on the podcast, or Nick's hanging out with his friends again. You know, it's actually engaging. Like these are stories from everyday blue collar guys that probably would have never been told to any of these people that are listening, you know, otherwise. Yeah. And now we are, you know, have the opportunity to actually share them. And the same Nick Latham talked about last week with Mark, our veteran hunt winner last year, and the video that we did for that, the podcast episode 90 that he came on and told not only his story but the story of his hunt down here with us last December. Again, just a regular, humble, down-to-earth guy, and that's what really just drew Nick into that story, is like, this guy is awesome, this guy is amazing, and who would have thought, you know? I mean, and I think that can be said for a lot of our guests. I know we're doing the My Obsession series, and that's kind of the whole idea behind that video series. The same with Jesse Johnson, you know, who's also in the My Obsession series and on the podcast. Like, you know, these guys that are they're incredible outdoorsmen. They have incredible stories, they themselves. Wouldn't be shared otherwise. And I think it's really cool that we're able to bring that to this podcast.
Yeah, and another aspect of it is, I think we can all, as outdoorsmen, relate when we say, you know, sitting around a campfire or around deer camp, and everybody just sharing stories back and forth. And this is very, very similar to that. And even us as firemen sitting around the kitchen table, sharing stories. This is a chance for those stories to get recorded, and a chance for those stories to get shared to the masses. And so it's really, really cool, just being able to be a part of these stories getting shared. And so exactly like you said, they probably never would have. But speaking of cool stories, our podcast with Chad Allen Jones, that is a cool story.
Yes.
So Chad, me and him have our hunting area in common. We both hunt Collin County, and he shot I won't say world record, because that's not true, but he shot a record whitetail in Texas, low fence,
233-inch deer.
Yeah, episode
48.
I don't know how Sam memorizes all these episodes. I have to look at every single one of them, but
they just roll out, man. I don't know how it happens either.
I can't even remember some of these and some of these guests, but maybe it's because you've been a part of more than I have. But anyways, Chad Allen Jones, awesome guy, good friend of ours. He shared his story, and this is just another example of a story which his was a little better known because of the size of his deer. But still another really cool story to hear how it all came around for him and how he was able to get the job done. So definitely go check out episode 48 because that one was a cool one.
Chad's another one of those guys that you can just sit down with and just start talking, and you feel like you've known the guy forever. Just incredible dude.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I'll throw one out there for you because I didn't mention this in last week's podcast, and it's actually kind of a funny story. You know, you're talking about, you know, just scrolling through and memories coming back. So after we recorded episode 100, so earlier this week, I was doing some work for Fall Obsession, just, you know, admin stuff that nobody really cares to know about. And that's boring as all get out for me too, in all honesty. But I was working on some of the behind the scenes stuff on our podcast and just updating some information and stuff on the third party service that we use to publish our podcast to all these different platforms. I was working on that, and I was scrolling through some older episodes, and I came across 49 and 50, which you and I were both there with special guest Tyler Carroll.
Yes, I was going to mention that one too.
Yeah, who is also a firefighter. And those episodes, I don't know, I saw those titles and instantly the memories start coming back, and I listened to them. Like, I went back and I just turned them on, like while I was working, and listened to them, went back, even though I was there and I was a part of the conversation. It's been, you know, a year or so since we recorded those with him.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like that long ago.
No, it doesn't, and that's what's crazy. But Tyler, again, another guy, another friend of ours, another firefighter, who started up his own company, Dead Reckoning Collective, a veteran-owned publishing company for veterans and veteran authors. Which if I'll save that for Dead Reckoning Collective to talk about themselves. Go listen to 4950 or follow them on Instagram if you're interested in what they are. But Tyler's doesn't really have much experience as a hunter. But we kind of we thought outside the box a little bit for those two podcasts, and we kind of took the approach of, you know, one, the fire life, that side of it, and then the hunting is therapy, quote unquote, you know, approach, or in his case, riding, you know, kind of a therapeutic riding approach. Yep. So kind of took that play on it and just let the conversation go, and two really, really good episodes came out of that. Some of my favorites, honestly. And I remember even after we published them, we had some guys that are on our staff that are hunters, not firefighters, not veterans or anything like that, they texted me or emailed me and said, man, I listened to those. Those were great episodes. Like, I didn't know. Cool. I don't know how y'all would make that connection, but y'all did. So I mean, it was just really cool to see those come together and do that collaboration with them.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Some of my favorites.
Yeah, and it was a nice change of pace because we do have a lot of outdoors, a lot of hunting, a lot of technical bow hunting skills, bow tuning, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely a nice change of pace for the podcast in general as a whole.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed recording those, and then I really enjoyed editing them and getting to listen to them again. So yeah, good call on that.
Not meaning to steal your thunder on that, but that was one thing. That was my contribution to this week. So
yeah, I was actually meaning to bring those up as well as I was scrolling.
Yeah.
But I have to mention the educational podcasts that we put out there, like tuning bows. I mean, the list goes on. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
There's been a lot on tuning bows, shopping for bows. We did one early on whitetail management. You and I.
Yes.
I think that was 12 or 13. We did one on that.
We did one on food plots.
Food plots.
That was you and Drew, episode 70.
Nice plug. I forgot about that one.
Fall prep now with you and Kurt, who's no longer staffer. Unfortunately, I had to lose that guy, but shout out to Kurt, man. He was an awesome
a loyal
guest.
Follower and a loyal podcast listener. So thank you, Kurt. Man, you're plugging all the ones that I forgot about. I don't, you know, these are not that they're not important or anything, but they just, I don't know. These are the ones that I can't rattle off the top of my head with a name and a number. So
Right, yeah. So here's one that I don't remember as clearly, but it says hunter education, which ties perfectly into what I just mentioned with Tony Dymek and you, episode 59.
yeah.
Why don't you shed some light on that one?
So conversation between Tony and I should probably go back and listen to it myself to get some better recollection on it. But Tony, he lives in Colorado, one of our resident staffers up there, and he's formerly has worked for Colorado Parks and Wildlife and that organization up there, doing a lot of conservation stuff with them, and then also doing a lot of just hunter ed. And he's welcome to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's an instructor up there teaching hunter education courses, and then also teaching youth hunters up there. So kind of brought him on to obviously talk about that subject matter and just kind of get a firsthand perspective on somebody who is passionate about it and wants to see kids get out there and succeed. So it's a good conversation. Recommend going and listen to it.
Absolutely. And then to round off the educational portion, I have to give it up for Tim Burgess, because that dude is super smart, super knowledgeable about probably one of the most complicated draws we like ever.
Colorado,
which is Colorado.
Yeah.
And so if you need any help on draw applications or anything, go to our website, fallobsession.com/podcast, and look for Tim Burgess's name, because we've done a couple on draw applications for Colorado. So go check those out too.
We've done one the past 2 years, including this year, 2022, for, like you said, for specific dates, tags, the little details that you need to know about applying for that. Again, Tim can rattle this stuff off like nothing else. Just it's like it's at the front of his brain. He's also talked to us about putting in for like an African safari and planning and prepping for a trip like that. Most of the podcasts that Tim joins us on are educational in that kind of subject matter, and it's not granted, just in all honesty, it's not the most dressed up fancy subject matter, but it's educational. Right. It's information that really helps people if this is something that you're trying to do. We did get him on here to actually talk about one of his whitetail hunts though, and that was pretty cool with the monster buck that he shot last year. I have to 87, the Colorado whitetail. That's a good one to listen to too. We actually got him on to tell a story. So, but Tim's a regular on the podcast. We have him on here pretty frequently, it seems like. So we do appreciate his contributions and getting involved and recording with us and sharing that info. And on that note too, because Tim also does a lot of written articles on our website, fallobsession.com, over this same subject matter if you'd rather read about it, especially this year, 2022. Huge shout out to him for putting together a very intense piece of research on Colorado draw applications, covering every species that's offered practically. But all is to say, if you guys are having trouble finding any of that stuff on our website, if you go to the bottom of any page on our website, there's a search button. You guys can click that and just type it in. We tag and cross tag and all that stuff, all of our posts, all of our content, doesn't matter if it's articles, videos, podcasts, whatever it is on our website. So if you search like Colorado or Colorado tags or something like that, stuff should start popping up. And if it doesn't, obviously reach out and we'll send you where you need to be. So
yeah, absolutely.
What else? Any other memories?
I mean, I could go on and just list podcasts.
Well, we could go through 1 through 100 in all honesty and talk about it. I'll briefly mention a couple more recent ones, honestly, because some of our good ones honestly have been pretty recent here in my opinion. One being the Midwestern High Series Part 1 and Part 2, episodes 97 and 98, where we sat down with our Fall Obsession crew that just went on a Missouri snow goose hunt, majority of which had never snow goose hunt before. They are passionate. They are still excited when we record those episodes. Definitely worth a listen. It's an entertaining entertaining podcast for sure with an awesome crew. You'll feel like you're back in hunting camp, honestly, is when you listen to
those. Yeah, those were a couple that I was actually super bummed that I wasn't a part of because listening back to those, it sounded so entertaining. And I've been on a goose hunt before, so it wasn't a snow goose hunt, so I probably didn't quite see the numbers that they saw. But I do know the feeling of the sky being full of birds and them just coming in flocks and droves, one after the other. And so I was super bummed listening to those podcasts because that would have been a fun conversation.
Yeah.
And all those people just seem like fun people to be around.
Yeah,
So
for sure. So go check those out, guys. Episode 93. I already mentioned it briefly earlier, but with a friend of mine down here in Texas, Jesse Johnson. The episode's titled Public Landowner. Jesse hunts public land in Texas with a traditional bow. And he's passionate about it. That's what he does year after year. Just an absolutely intriguing story, super interesting guy, very humble, very down to earth. He's also in episode 2 of our My Obsession series on our YouTube channel. So go listen to that, watch that video. Really good stuff, just wholesome content right there. And the other one I'll plug is episode 99, Derek and Lacey from Ridge Rock, and I know we'll talk about Ridge Rock at the end, but they are
Derek and Lacey.
Yeah, they're some of our most favorite people to hang out with on this podcast for sure. Love it whenever we get them on here. So
yeah, absolutely. I'll go back to Jesse really quick.
Yeah.
If you go listen to that podcast and watch episode 2 of My Obsession, beware, because you will want to buy a trad bow. You will, because I am guilty of it. I didn't buy one, but I wanted one.
I sent, because Nick did the edit on that video, and so I was the one that went out and filmed with Jesse and actually shot all the footage and everything and collected some of his footage for the film from some of his hunts and everything to put in there. And I sent it over to Nick and everything, and Nick's going through and he starts texting me. He's like, "Hey, does Jesse build traditional bows?" Because Jesse has a custom trad bow. He's like, "Hey, does he build bows? Like, where can I get one? Who's he get them from? I want one." It'll get you hooked on traditional, or at least once you get you wanting to try traditional bow hunting for sure.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but I want to get into it. One day, one thing at a time.
Yeah, one day. I got too many irons in the fire, man. I can't I can't tackle a new thing right now.
Me either. Yeah, man, I could go on and on.
Yeah.
Just they're all so good, and I can't. It's hard to pick one over the others, but those are just some that stood out while I was scrolling.
Yeah. So I'll segue into and I was really, when I brought it up last week, I really wish that you'd have been there with us to share it too, because a lot of this has happened with you and I. But I wanted to talk briefly about recording in person versus recording virtually. Because like I mentioned last week, I feel like when you record in person with somebody, like the episodes just feel so much more organic. It's just, it's so much more of a wholesome story when you can sit across the table from somebody, look them in the eye, and, just have a conversation with them. And I said last week too, I was like, man, with some of these guests that we've had on, Tyler, Kelly Cato, these guys, Jesse, these guys that we've had the privilege to record with in person because they're local to us here in North Texas. I wish that we could have audio rolling from the time we walk through the door. Because it's like, from the time we walk through the door and start talking with these guys, when we're not mic'd up, the camera's not rolling, it's like, I'm thinking in the back of my mind the whole time having a conversation, this is what we need on the podcast. Yep. Chance, another one, going up there in the man cave and hanging out. Yeah. I wish that everything could be rolling from the second we walk through the door, because there's so much just true outdoorsmanship, it's just it's raw and it's good.
And I think that ties into exactly what we were talking about at the first of the podcast, where it just feels like we're sitting around deer camp just talking. And so those are some of the best conversations, and even the ones with just me and you on them, when we're Winging It. You know,
Yeah.
I think there's a podcast called Winging It or
There
something
is.
like that.
What I gotta look it up. What episode is it? I gotta
He
find
actually
it.
has to look this one up, folks. He doesn't know it.
Hey, we start getting back past like 60. That's when it starts getting a little rough for me. I don't
Right.
remember them quite as well. Episode 32.
Oh,
Episode.
dang, that was way back.
Yeah, way
See,
back.
It doesn't seem like it was that far ago, long ago.
It doesn't. And that's what's
Crazy,
crazy,
man.
man. Absolutely crazy. Well, there was the other one. It was later on, like in the 40s or 50s, I think. Oh, yeah, it was right before we hit the 1 year mark. 51, literally right before we hit the 1 year
struggle
mark.
bus,
The
yes.
struggle bus. Remember when we did blooper episodes too?
Oh yeah, yeah, I do.
Some of those were
And
pretty funny.
I think now that we've kind of taken an approach of just let it kind of flow, let conversation flow.
Yeah.
Because used to we'd be pretty strict when we thought we knew what we were talking about. We'd be pretty strict on the editing.
So this is perfect because the next thing I want to talk about was kind of just not the evolution of the podcast as far as subject matter, but also just kind of the behind the scenes stuff, the
Yes.
stuff that people don't know about,
Yeah.
and how that has changed over the years. Because, when we first started this, like we were, like it had to be perfect. It had to be, there couldn't be a pause that was too long. There couldn't be too many or ums, and yeah, there are still some and ums that I feel like we take out just if they're super annoying or just
Oh, I'm one of the worst.
yeah. So there was an edit recently, guys. I'll share this for our listeners. There was an edit recently where Nick was I forget how it came up, but you were texting me while you were editing a podcast. I don't even remember which one it was now. And I told you, I was like, "Hey man, just do a loose edit on this one." I recorded it whatever episode it was, so I kind of had an idea on what it sounded like and everything. And I was like, hey, just do kind of a loose edit, like just hit this, and just let the rest slide. And he's like, I like your style of editing. That's what you sent me.
I want to say it was the Midwestern High, those episodes.
I think it was the
one of them.
second one, maybe? Second one?
It was one of them for sure.
Second one.
I was like, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that style. Because if you sit there and nitpick every single thing, you'll turn a 35-40 minute episode into 2.5 hours of editing. And so
oh yeah, easy.
it can get extensive.
Yeah.
So I think taking the loose approach is the way to go.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like we've come full circle a little bit. Not as far as the editing goes, but like as far as just the organic content, just the letting it go. Because we had a lot of episodes early on that you and I kind of went into it with just kind of a loose plan and let it evolve from there. We recorded in person a lot of those times back then, but and I feel like we kind of swung the other way and was like, all right, we're going to have guests and this point, we're going to ask them about this, we're going to talk about this. And now we've everything swung back the other way. And it's mainly, I think the change was we started doing the video podcast and recording virtually over video. Cause like I said, it really helps when you can listen, when you can see somebody's face and, look them in the eye. Obviously in person is the best way to do that. But early on when we recorded virtually with people, we recorded over the phone. It was literally a phone call with this person that we were plugging into our slowly evolving sound equipment and everything that we put together. And now we're doing it, over a computer virtually, which I think adds it not only helps us kind of restore that feeling that we're interacting more personally with each other, but I think it also brings that to our guests and makes their experience better. Because when you're just jumping on the phone with somebody potentially that you've never talked to before and now you're having a conversation, there's a noticeable difference if you go back and listen to those that we just record over the phone versus those that we actually the guests that we brought on here and put on a screen where we could actually see each other. So it makes a difference.
I completely agree. I think you're right on the money, and you hit the nail right on the head. And even in the very, very, very beginning, when we were doing the old pickup truck podcast,
I was gonna bring that up.
Talk about organic.
So
Those are about as organic as it gets, because the only thing we had was that little recorder, and the only place we could go was a pickup truck in a parking lot.
So Drew's not here to defend himself, but I'm going to bring him into this conversation. He mentioned at the very end of episode 100 last week, he talked about how I was a little bit reluctant to start the podcast in the beginning because I was worried about the workload. And like I said last week, it did add to the workload, no doubt. You and I know better
Absolutely.
than anybody. But it's been a really good thing for us for sure. And so how this all started is we had been throwing around, it was late 2019, we had been throwing around the idea of a podcast just as an admin group, as Fall Obsession, talking to these people. I mean, there was nothing concrete. Drew shows up to our Fall Obsession staff hunt in San Angelo. And one of the evenings, I don't even remember when, he pulls me aside, he's like, hey, I bought a recorder. And he gives it to me. He's like, I got this for us to start a podcast. And he's like, I think that we should just let it roll in camp here, while we're here in San Angelo. That never happened. I wish it did now, in hindsight.
Yeah.
I wish it did. But from there, it stemmed into, all right, after the holiday season was over and everything, I was like, all right, we got to work on this and get off the ground. So early March is when we finally we're going to make it happen. And episode 1 was actually not the first episode we recorded. It was the first episode published, but 2 and 3, I think, were the first 2 that we recorded. And like you said, it was you and I with that little tiny recorder sitting in a pickup truck.
Yep.
Because we didn't have mics. We were super worried about background noise and the sound and everything. So... and I'm pretty sure we recorded at least over time a half dozen episodes sitting in a pickup truck in a parking lot somewhere. That first time we were sitting in a parking lot at Cinnamon Creek Archery in Roanoke, Texas. So, but,
And since then, we've recorded many at Cinnamon Creek using our new
full
fancy
setup
equipment.
Yeah, it's actually been quite a while since we recorded one at Cinnamon Creek, but Cinnamon Creek has helped us out a lot over the past couple of years with giving us some space to record, even letting us use previously, before they changed the purpose of the room, they used to have a little podcast room set up back there for their shop manager, and they let us use that. We had to bring our own stuff, but that was fine because we had our own stuff. And we've got our setup now. I know if you're watching the podcast video, you can see my mic in the frame, but we have our setup now with the mics and everything that we need to give this the best quality that we can. But I was thinking about today when I was setting up for recording this episode, I was like, man, it literally takes me like 3 minutes to set all this up now. I can remember when you and I were fumbling around for 20 minutes trying to figure out how all this worked. Like it was truly learned by trial and error,
For sure. Yeah.
So.
And it still takes me, I mean, if I were to take it right now, it would probably take me 20 minutes still to set it up. But because, I mean, you keep it most of the time because you do most of the hosting.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think I ever got very good at it. I would be like, hey, man, like, especially when I would take the stuff and I would be the host with some guest, and I'd be like, hey, man, is this supposed to be plugged into this? And what does this do? Why is it? Hey, Sam, why is this not working? What's going on? Yeah. You're like, yeah, man, you just got to plug this into that and then turn this on. Once you turn that on, you'll be able to hear it and whatever. So
podcast support right here. Just call me.
Right.
Call me.
That's right. Yeah. He wears many hats, folks, and that's one of them.
Oh my gosh, don't remind me. But talking about those early podcasts, I figured I've done this a few times over the course of our podcast. I've just randomly taken a few minutes in an episode to kind of throw out some of our most downloaded podcast episodes and everything. It's been a long time since I did that, but I figured given the occasion, be a good time to throw that out. And a good segue into that is, again, we're talking about those early episodes. We are over 2 years, over 100 episodes now into Fall Obsession Podcast, and still the most downloaded episode is episode 1.
No kidding.
Episode number 1. Most
Dang.
downloaded Fall Obsession Podcast episode. And
That's crazy.
it's a good episode. Myself and our good buddy Chester Barnes, who I went to Montana with in 2019. Yep, 2019 on a pronghorn hunt with Drew. We recapped that hunt. So the episode is titled Montana Pronghorn. That's the first episode of Fall Obsession Podcast. I like to think that it's the most downloaded because it's the best, it's the most awesome, and not that it's just the first one and people listen to one and then they're done with us. If you have been one of those people, trust me, we got better. Keep listening.
For sure.
Keep listening. But so that's still the most downloaded podcast episode that we've ever had.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. And now this is talking about too on podcast platforms. This is not counting YouTube, because if we went to YouTube, I'm pretty sure that we have some more recent episodes that have more views technically, if we want to compare numbers and stuff like that, however you want to look at it. I consider YouTube a whole nother animal over there that we just happen to throw our episodes on. I look at the stats on our podcast platforms. So
I got you.
The second most downloaded, talk about somebody who can tell a good story, is our pro staffer Brandon Scott.
That's a fact.
And he's been on several times with us to tell some pretty awesome stories. So if you see an episode as you're scrolling through with Brandon Scott's name on it, you need to listen to that one. It's going to be a good one. But the first time he came on was episode 54, Do It Yourself Colorado Elk is what that's called, or DIY Colorado Elk. Episode 54. That's the second most downloaded episode we've ever had. Rightfully so. Incredible story. Awesome dude. Another one of those stories that you wouldn't hear if you didn't listen. So
yeah, he's a pro staffer and pro storyteller.
Pro storyteller and pro hunter for sure. That dude. Yeah, he shot
one of the most successful hunters that I know.
Oh yeah,
probably. Super jealous, but it's whatever.
All right. Well, talking about that jealousy that you and I have for being not as successful hunters brings me to the third most downloaded episode, and that is 78, which is To Kill a Big Deer Part 1. We were talking a lot about our Texas dirt property, and at the time, the big 150-inch target buck that we had out there early on the year that we never saw again.
Yeah.
So
insert sad sound effect.
Yeah, sad sound effect. I don't do sound effects, so it's not going to be in there. That's the best y'all get. But that was the third most downloaded. Fourth most downloaded, 80. Bow tuning. You talked about those educational episodes, and episode 80 has quickly climbed to the top 5 in the past 20 weeks to talk about that. So, and then finally I'll wrap up the top 5 with one that we already mentioned, episode 43, Wyoming mule deer with Brody and Chance. So
nice.
Brody and Chance got one in the top 5, and I will say that if you look, you really have to look at the top 10, because very small numbers separate like 5 from 10. Like it's a very narrow window. So we've had a lot of really good episodes, like we've said countless times today, you know, that honestly I feel like at this point, if you as a listener have something specific that you want to hear about, you can start scrolling and probably find content on that subject matter. You won't find anything on a caribou hunt or moose hunt. That just popped into my head, and that's something that we have to change. I need to find somebody that can tell a story. So
yeah,
because
I bet we'll find somebody.
Yeah, if you've been on one, send us a message or comment below so that we can get you on the podcast. So
yeah, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, I'd love to have somebody on a caribou hunt because that's my dream hunt. So
yeah,
we'll see.
No, hint there,
Hint,
listeners.
hint. How'd you do it? Where'd you go? Can I come next time?
All right. Right.
Oh, but no, man, it's been crazy. And I don't know, I feel like we're coming a little full circle just on this episode at this point, but it's been crazy, it's been wild, and we're gonna keep going. And here in 99 weeks for episode 200, I'm sure we'll have even more crazy stories to tell about. Man, do you remember where we were at when we did episode 100? Do you remember the crappy equipment we were using back then?
Yeah, it's gonna
I'm
be
sure we'll
crazy.
be talking about that here in a couple of years. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it has been awesome because we started this thing and we had no idea where it was going to go.
Yep.
Like we had an idea of where we wanted it to go, but we didn't know, because I think there's a statistic out there that, like, Drew might have mentioned it, like 8 out of 10 podcasts don't go past episode 7, or you might have mentioned it.
yeah, it was an article that I read right around the time we were starting our podcast. So
Okay. And so it's just awesome how far we've come and how far the podcast has come and how many episodes we've gotten to and all the awesome content we have. And it's funny because I just had, as y'all know, Sam mentioned last time, I got deployed for a week to help fight the fires in West Texas. He made it sound a lot better than it actually was. But
I had to hype you up, man. Come on. I
and
told you I
appreciate
would.
it. That's good looking out. But that's beside the point. I met a guy.
Hero.
He was a strike team leader on my strike team, and never met this guy before. But basically, just to sum this a quick touch on how it works, there's a lot of different departments that come together to make a strike team. So,
Right.
Never met this guy before. Never met hardly any of these guys before, and I see him. He is from the same area me and Sam are from. And so I'm in a SAWS class this past week, and he's there, and he comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, I didn't know you were a big podcast guy." And I'm like, because I don't view myself as a big podcast guy, but we are at episode 100, 101 now. And so, like, it's just proof that it's getting out there and people are talking about it and it's growing. And so,
Yeah.
and it's all thanks to our listeners, because they're listening, they're telling their friends about it, their friends are listening, and all of our supporters and everybody who listens. And we can't thank you guys enough, because we couldn't be doing this. And I think we say it every single episode. We couldn't be doing what we're doing without you guys. And so it's been cool. It's been fun. And we're not done yet. So
every week, Nick and I, or our company, basically Nick and I both see it. We get an email on like a weekly podcast update, like telling us our download numbers for the week and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And with the exception of a couple of times, unfortunately, where we've missed a Monday morning, where we've had to go a week without a new episode, and I mentioned that last week. Look, we've done this every week pretty consistently. Like for having 100 episodes, I'd say we've missed less than 10 over the past 2 years as far as the weekly deal. But all is to say, we get weekly updates on our download numbers, and with the exception of us unfortunately missing a week here and there, every week it's going up. It's more, sometimes more than others. Sometimes it might not seem like it, but if you look at the trend, every single week our episodes are being downloaded more and more and more. And you guys are obviously the ones that are doing that. So
yeah,
we appreciate it.
100%. Yeah, appreciate it for sure.
Where was so how that I want to know more. How that strike team guy, how did he find out about the podcast?
So I added him as a friend on Facebook. He popped up in my suggest friends, added him as a friend, and then I shared episode 100, the poster for it, on Facebook. And so I guess he went, because you put a picture of me as the background, and I wasn't even in the episode
because it's
so
the best podcast picture we've ever
it
taken.
is a good one.
I had
It
to
is a
use
good
it. So
But I guess he saw that, clicked on it, listened to episode 100, and yeah, he said it was nothing but good feedback. He was like, "Man, that's really cool," because we get our fire guys here, and they're like, "Oh, fall obsession. Are y'all talking about fall obsession? Blah 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 blah." And it's but they listen too, which they're good supporters. But he was actually like, it's really cool. That's awesome, man. And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, thanks for the support.
yeah.
So
So
I think that's how it happened.
a little insight into Nick and I's fire station lives. So we've always been on different shifts. We used to be at the same station on different shifts. And every morning at shift change, when I would be getting off and he'd be coming on, if we were just so much as talking about anything, like it didn't have
Literally
to be
anything.
hunting, it could be fire department related. If we were talking about anything, never fails, somebody would walk up and be like, "Oh, y'all talking about fall obsession? Is this a company meeting? Like, what are y'all doing over here?"
Yeah.
Freaking
Yeah.
firemen, man, they're jerks.
Yeah, they are. But I love them.
Oh yeah. No, it's to talk about that too. Like I know we, or I like to think I do. At least maybe I don't, but I feel like we stay pretty humble with it and everything. As far as outside here, like we don't think that we're and I don't believe we are big dogs or anything like that by any means.
Not at all.
I chuckled inside the other day because the rookie at work on my crew, we were cooking dinner and something, and one of the other guys, like we're just saying, always brought up something about fall obsession and everything, and I forgot what I said. I was like, yeah, it's going good, and he's not a big hunter or anything, but he's been trying to piece it together. He's been there a couple months now. He's been trying to piece it together, I can tell, and I haven't said anything about it. And so he's like, "Man, so do you like video stuff for them, or like what do you do?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do some work for them, I pretty much left it there. He's like, "Yeah, because I saw your name on like a podcast. It's pretty cool that you recorded a podcast for them and everything." I was like, yeah, it was a fun time. I enjoyed it. And then of course from the other room, one of the other guys like, "Founder and CEO." And I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
Oh yeah, to everybody in the fire department, Sam's the CEO and I'm the CFO. I don't know how that
you have nothing to do with the money too, which is crazy.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you how much money we have, how much money we make, how much money we spend. I have no idea, for the record. So
I'm just here for the t-shirt.
that's it. That's it. And I pay for those too. So
You don't have to.
I know. Hey, we all got to support.
Hey, it's a give and take for sure, but it's going the right direction. We got a lot to wrap it up, rabbit trail, like I said.
Yeah. You're not the only one.
To bring it to home, we got a lot of people that, like even Nick mentioned earlier, wear a lot of different hats in this company right now. And as we grow, those hats get passed around a little bit. Things will start to get they have gotten delegated, and they will continue to get delegated more. But, I run a lot of the day-to-day. Nick does pretty much his role as media. Like pretty much everything he works with is more behind the scenes media type stuff. Drew does all the behind the scenes marketing stuff that even I have no clue half the time what he's talking about. Majority of our conversations are like, yeah, do it. Just if you think it's best, do it. And then it's a lot of behind the scenes work because Nick Latham too. I mean, he's done a lot for us in from the business standpoint, as far as the non-glamorous, LLC stuff and stuff that nobody wants to have to even deal with. I don't even want to have to deal with it. And he's stepped up to the plate and helped with a lot of that. And obviously everybody has their own visions, and we do a lot of vision casting together and everything, and put a lot of stuff together as a group. But bringing the staff coordinators on, Todd and Tim, they've both been on the podcast. Todd kind of headed up that snow goose hunt that we mentioned, that Midwestern High series, reflects that. And we mentioned Tim, coming on here as a huge source of information for us. Both those guys have stepped up to kind of help us with our staffers that we have across the country and help kind of manage them and get them more involved with specific projects and stuff moving forward. And we're going to continue to grow like that and continue to find other roles and people that are suited for those roles as we grow. And it's only going to benefit both us, our followers, our listeners, viewers, whatever you might be. It's going to put more tools in the toolbox for you guys, because that's our goal. Is we're a source of information. Like we've spent literally years. Obviously, we're 2 years in this podcast. We've spent a long time building this platform that is Fall Obsession. And you go to our website and you can literally, if you wanted to and you were passionate enough about it, you could spend hours on there looking at all the different types of content, covering all sorts of different subject matter just across the board, whether it's articles, videos, podcasts, other forms of media series on there and everything. Like it keeps going. And we have years of this stuff built up on our website at this point, available for people at their fingertips. Gear reviews, our guys do a lot of work on that, reviewing gear that they spend their own money on, that they use in the field and that they feel like is worth sharing. Like there's no partnership or sponsorship to 90% of it. It's just a guy's true opinion is what it is.
Yep.
So, but, well, buddy, we've been rambling for a while. I don't know. It feels good to come into a podcast without an agenda. I know that might sound kind of funny to our listeners, but I pretty much told you I want to do your anniversary recap, and this conversation that you guys just heard is the result of me planning that far in advance. So
Yeah, we want to talk about. We usually have a subject of like, hey, why don't we talk about this? We're like, okay, and then that's all. That's as far as the plan goes. But sometimes those are the best ones.
Talking about the early days, early on, like we both have our laptops out, we'd be taking notes. Like we'd have a whole page of like, we're going to talk about this and this and this and this, and we're just going to go through it like this and everything. And now it's like, all right, here's the general direction we want to steer the conversation and let it ride. So
and we just go with it.
Yep. Which I like it that way, and hopefully our listeners do too. So
yeah.
But
speaking of listener feedback, if you guys have, and I know Sam already mentioned this, but if you guys have anything you want us to talk about, please let us know. If you guys have anybody you want us to record with, please let us know. There's a place on our website, fallobsession.com/podcast. Go to the very bottom and you can fill that out. It'll come to me, Sam, all the admin, Nick, and Drew. And we'll all get it. Somebody will look at it, and we will figure out a way to oblige. So, go do it. Let us know. Let us know how we're doing.
Yeah,
we take criticism constructively. So,
we've been saying that for a long time.
yeah, and it's true. It's true. If you like it, let us know. If you don't, let us know. We want to know. So.
Because this is fluid, like this is evolving, this is changing, and we want to make it better. We want to, if it's not a useful tool for you guys, or just again something you enjoy, we want it to be. So if it's not, we want to know that. Or if we just have one episode in particular that didn't meet that standard, you're welcome to tell us about it. So we talked about it with some of our guests and how some of these episodes just feel like you're hanging out and you're sitting at hunting camp. That's kind of how we want this to feel, even with our guests. Like, I know I'm sitting here in my home office, and Nick is, I don't know where, it looks like the rainforest or something behind him there.
I am in the forest here.
Yeah, on the podcast video. But, we're, at the same time, we've been at it for probably close to an hour now, just, hanging out. And y'all are hanging with us at this point if you're still listening. So
yeah, that's true. You're dedicated if you listen this long.
Yeah. Man, we could keep rambling forever, but we should wrap it up. And save the next conversation for 102. So
For sure.
we've kind of already hit on it. fallobsession.com is the website, and that's where all the stuff is that we've already talked about, all the educational content, all the things that you could spend those hours of your time making yourself a better hunter and feeding your obsession on, is at fallobsession.com. So go check those out. The feedback's at fallobsession.com/podcast, like Nick mentioned. You can also see all of our podcast episodes and our podcast videos on there. I'd say probably 90% of our podcast episodes are accompanied by a video at this point. So
That's what I'm talking about.
the audio drops every Monday morning. The videos on the YouTube channel normally 2 to 3 days after that. So be sure that you follow on whatever podcast platform you prefer to listen on. We're on all major podcast platforms. And go subscribe to our YouTube channel, because it's not just podcasts. We put out a lot of different videos about a lot of different stuff. And we got some good, cool stuff in the works that Nick and I have been talking about and kind of planning as far as continuing our My Obsession series, with some more guests that we'll have coming on there in the future for that show. And obviously our Texas Dirt series with our management property down here in Texas. We'll be gearing up for season 2 here in a couple months with that. So you guys don't want to miss that. Subscribe, notifications on. fallobsession.com/store. We got some new designs. I'm rocking the Bear Country t-shirt right now on the podcast. The Midwestern High t-shirt's another new one for this spring. Both of those t-shirts are in stock in all sizes right now, but it's not going to be like that for long. Our apparel sells out pretty quick. So if you guys want, go to fallobsession.com, order you a new t-shirt. We also got some hats that at the time of recording this are not in stock. They're available for pre-order. I was hoping I'd have them today, in all honesty, but they didn't show up, so I was pretty disappointed about that. But within days of this episode being dropped, they should be in stock on the online store. 2 of them are some popular designs that we've sold out of in the past, some of our trucker hats. We got those back, or they're coming back. The other one is probably the most excited I've seen Nick about a hat in a long time. We came out with a new Desert Hunter hat. Go to our website and check that one out too. We've already sold quite a few of those just in the pre-order. So
Yeah, it's got to be the slickest hat, in my opinion, that we've come out with.
Oh, yeah.
And I have
almost all of them.
probably all of them. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I'm pretty stoked about this hat. This is going to be my, and most of them are pretty sweaty, and not in nice, out to dinner
They're well worn.
shape.
They're well worn.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wear them all the time. But this one I'm pretty excited about. So
Yeah.
go get one if you want one. Even if you don't want one, go get one anyways. So
Yeah. And on that note, guys, too, I know we plug our store, our apparel on social media pretty frequently, and in our stories and everything. And obviously on the podcast, we tell you guys to go and buy a shirt or a hat or whatever. We try to put some thought into these designs as far as, not to talk bad about any big companies, but you go to a big outdoor sportsman store like Cabela's or Bass Pro, and everything in that store has their name on it. You can't walk out of there and buy something without having their name attached to it in some form or fashion. I don't want that to be what we do, which is why we try to come up with cool designs like the Bear Country t-shirt, the Midwestern High t-shirt. I think we still even have some Pronghorn Country shirts in stock from when we did that. So we try to come up with stuff that's kind of cool, that, puts a cool spin on something that you guys might be passionate about. And by purchasing one of those shirts, you're supporting Fall Obsession. You're supporting us. You're not putting money in my pocket, Nick's pocket, or any of our pockets. Certainly not my pocket. You're not paying us. You're supporting Fall Obsession so we can keep doing what we're doing and keep putting quality hunting and outdoor content on as many pages as we can. So that's why we plug it every week. Not because we're asking for your money, we're asking for your support. That's why we do it. So
for sure.
And I'll throw y'all a bone too if you're listening to our ramblings at this point. I'll I'll give you guys a coupon code that you guys can use if you listen to the podcast and give you some % off. What should it be, Nick? Let's throw something cool out there for them.
Let's make it, how about Podcast 101?
Podcast 101. That's the code. If you guys are listening or watching at this point, go to fallobsession.com/store. Podcast 101 will get you 20% off. So,
And that's 101, just to clarify.
101. Podcast 101. Last but not least, Ridge Rock Hunt Company. We already mentioned Derek and Lacey being on here, episode 99, good friends of ours. But they run Ridge Rock Hunt Company. They are in Mississippi, and what they do is they book hunts across all of North America for all sorts of different species at vetted, trusted outfitters. Derek talks about in episode 99 how he will not set anybody up with an experience that they're not going to enjoy. Like, every outfitter that is in his network is somebody that he has hunted with personally, or somebody that he trusts like none other has hunted with personally. So Ridge Rock Hunt Company, they will get you set up with a hunt. So go check them out on their website, ridgerockhuntcompany.com, I believe. They're on Facebook, Instagram. Derek's posting dead animals on social media constantly with clients that are, having success. Really down to earth, good, wholesome people. He'll find something that'll work for you in your budget, which is important for all of us. So go check him out and book your next hunting adventure. Doesn't have to be this year, it can be next year. Plan it out, figure it out, talk to him, see what he's got. So,
Yep.
All right, buddy. Thanks for hanging. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me again.
Always a pleasure.
I'm gonna go skip around this awesome forest.
Yeah. Skip around.
Back here.
Let me know if you find any leprechauns.
We catching butterflies. And all sorts of stuff.
Oh, this is going downhill fast.
Oh yeah, we gotta go.
All right, guys. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back again with y'all next week for another Fall Obsession podcast episode. We'll catch you then.
Catch you later.